Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of the Bird's Nest podcast. My name is Joe Donahue, and we are here today on this Monday, March 13th. It is the last days of the NFL's league year. And what that means is that earlier today at noon, teams were allowed to begin to what was referred to as the legal tampering period. So what does that mean? That means that teams can can contact players who are not part of their team. So up until this point, teams had exclusive negotiating rights over their free agents, over their team's players who are set to be free agents this year. The teams the teams that they were playing for during the 2022 to 2023 season had exclusive negotiating rights. Starting earlier today, teams are now allowed to contact players who do not belong to their teams. And this is the sort of unofficial start to free agency. So that period began earlier today at noon. It will continue until 4 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday, March 15th. At 4 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday, March 15th, we begin a new NFL league year. So happy almost New Year, everybody, because we're coming up on a new year. March 15th is when the year officially changes. And at that point, deals that have been negotiated between clubs like the Eagles or other teams with players that belong to other teams currently, they can go into effect. So that's when the free agency deals can start to occur. So they cannot be finalized until 4 o'clock p.m. on March 15th. But we're going to start seeing news happen over the course of this week, over the course of the early part of this week. And we have seen some big news already. We've seen players like Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Las Vegas Raiders. We've seen we've seen other things going on. We've seen other moves happen. Certainly the league is still waiting on Aaron Rodgers news. This is a big time of the year for the NFL and for player transactions, as it's referred to. So that's what we want to make sure that we're doing. We want to, please keep your ear to the ground, keep your ear to us. We're going to get you as much of the Eagles-related news as it happens. So that's the big thing. The league also finalized the free agency, the league also finalized the NFL salary cap for the 2023 to 2024 NFL season, which will also be in effect on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Teams will have to comply with the salary cap, which this year is slated for $224.8 million for teams. So over the course of this year, no team can pay its players a combined more than $224.8 million. Now, some teams may have a little bit more. Teams can elect to carry over unused cap space from the previous year to the new year. They have to do that. They can carry over as much of that as they want. They can carry over all of it if they want to, and I don't see any reason why a team would not want to do that if they have the cap space. If they're coming in under the cap, it gives them a little bit more wiggle room, possibly a little bit more negotiating room than other teams, which hopefully would entice a player to go to that team. As far as the Eagles are concerned, The free agency list is quite long. We've got 11 going into the legal tampering period. We had 11 starters on our free agency list. James Bradbury at cornerback, Fletcher Cox at defensive end, TJ Edwards at linebacker, Marcus Epps at safety, CJ Gardner-Johnson at safety, Javon Hargrave at defensive tackle, Jason Kelce at center, Rick Lovato, who's the long snapper, Miles Sanders at running back, Isaac Seumalo at guard, Kaiser White at linebacker. And that's to say nothing of other players who have also who are also slated to hit free agency. Boston Scott, notably among them, Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, Tyree Jackson at tight end, Zach Pascal at wide receiver, Andre Dillard, an offensive tackle, Gardner Minshew, quarterback, Brett Kern, our backup punter, Robert Quinn, an edge rusher. These guys are all hitting free agency this year, and it is entirely possible that these guys will most likely be leaving. There will be a large number there's going to be a large exodus out of this team just out of necessity. The Eagles do not have a ton of cap space right now to play with. As of this moment, according to overthecap.com, the Philadelphia Eagles have a grand total of $6.6 million in cap space. That is not a lot of cap space to play with. So the Eagles have some pressing needs. The Eagles have some things that they need to address. And at the end of the day, what is going to wind up happening is, well, realistically, players are just simply going to have to go. Howie Roseman has been very upfront since his year-end press conference following Super Bowl 57. He's been very upfront. He said as much at the Combine. He said quite a bit. Listen, the Eagles are just not going to be able to bring everybody back, and he's even gone so far as to say that the Eagles aren't even going to make offers to some of these players that are on this list. So it's big. It's a problem that the Eagles are losing could lose quite a number of the players on this list. Now, does that mean that the Eagles aren't making moves? No. The Eagles are making moves. The Eagles are doing things to keep some of these players around. Notably, one of the players that I didn't list going into the legal tampering period was Brandon Graham. He was slated to be a free agent this year. He was on the last year of his contract. He did sign on Friday. He did sign a 1-year, $6 million contract. This is a big pay cut, actually, for him. But it's something that he spoke to. He said that it was not about the money. He wanted to come back because he does not want to miss the run that the Eagles are about to go on. And that's somebody who really has the dedication that to the team. That says something about the team about this team and what this team is looking for going forward, and how it inspires confidence that players will be coming, or players want to play for the Eagles. Jason Kelce is another one. This news broke earlier today, actually. This news broke earlier today. Jason Kelce posted on Twitter that he is coming back. He was considering retirement. He spoke with his family. He spoke with people who are close to him. He ultimately came to the decision that he is going to come back for at least one more season. This was news that was broken to Howie Roseman this morning, and Howie Roseman, there's a video out there on the internet of Howie Roseman just giving Jason Kelce just a really big hug, as big of a hug as Howie Roseman can give him. And they had a little bit of a toast to celebrate Jason Kelce's decision to come back to play for the Eagles. This is huge. Jason Kelce is a stalwart of this team. So Brandon Graham is too. Brandon Graham is known for, among other things, the strip sack of Tom Brady in Super Bowl 52 that gave us our first Vince Lombardi trophy. Brandon Graham, Jason Kelce, the two of the longest tenured players on this team, both of them drafted by Andy Reid. This is important. This is big news. It's really going to help solidify at least some of the anchor of the team. Jason Kelce certainly as the center, who's had a number of years working with Jalen Hurts. It's going to be really, really, really beneficial. And then on the defensive side, Brandon Graham offering some additional stability to that defensive line. These are big moves. Huge fans of them because these guys are really strong contributors to this team. Yes, we're going to need to start looking at succession planning a little bit here because these guys, Graham and Kelce are not getting any younger, and there will come a point in time where both of them will retire. Jason Kelce, certainly, we said that he was toying with the idea of retirement, but his mom definitely knew that he was not retiring. And then Brandon Graham, on the other end of the football, he is the longest tenured player for the Eagles, having been drafted in the 2010 NFL Draft. That's more than a decade. That's well over a decade ago. That's something he is going to. We need to start thinking about. If you're the Eagles, you need to start thinking about what's going to happen when he decides to finally retire. But at least as of right now, taking a 1-year, $6 million deal, which is a pay cut for Brandon Graham, is a really, really important thing. So those are the things that are decently finalized. There's no official deal with Jason Kelce, but I don't see any situation in which he leaves Philadelphia. I think it's either he's coming back to play for Philly or he's retiring. There's no real option where he goes out because he doesn't need to. If he didn't want to play for the Eagles, he could have easily rode off into the sunset. There's no real need for him to play football for another team. If he wants to play for the Eagles, he absolutely can. But at a certain point, it's going to be one of those two options. So those are the news points, at least on the deals end for the Eagles in terms of trying to take which players are going to be sticking around. What moves have been made at this point? TJ Edwards, the Eagles linebacker during this past season, he has come to terms with the Chicago Bears. He is going to go off to the Chicago Bears. It's a 3-year, $19.5 million deal. That is certainly something that is going to address a deficiency that the Bears need. The Bears need somebody in that regard. TJ Edwards certainly is one of the best in that area. He's got plenty of life left in him. This is something that this is a real good pickup for the Bears. Not so much for the Eagles, certainly. We don't like seeing players leave who are really strong contributors, but in this case, TJ Edwards is going off. And then the other big news that broke was Javon Hargrave going to the 49ers. He signed a 4-year, $84 million deal. This is a payday for him. Javon Hargrave, there was no chance the Eagles were going to pay him the kind of money that he needed to stick around on the defensive line. As a defensive tackle. Again, he is also another person who has contributed well to this team. The Eagles played the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, and Javon Hargrave had a really key sack at that moment, or during that game, that really helped again make sure that the Eagles could run away with the game. They did, 31-7 in the NFC Championship game. Javon Hargrave went off and got himself a payday, and mad props to him. He will do the 49ers quite a bit of good. He just, at this point in time, looking at the Eagles lineup, and looking at the amount of cap space, there was really no chance that the Eagles were going to be paying Hargrave the amount of money that he was going to command on the market. So those are sort of like the official moves at this point. The other big move, this does not have to do directly with free agency, but it kind of does. Remember, the Eagles have really not a lot of cap space to play with here. $6.6 million, and that leads to the third, we'll call it a move, and that is having to do with Darius Slay. Darius Slay is the kind of person who wants to stay in Philly. He has made this eminently clear. He wants to stay in Philadelphia. He wants to know, he wants to do that. That having been said, we need to know exactly what Darius Slay is going to be worth before we can consider maybe doing some contract restructuring, which could save some cap space. And so the Eagles gave Darius Slay, through his agent, who is a name that is very, very familiar to Philadelphians, Drew Rosenhaus, has given Slay permission to seek a trade. Yeah. So again, at this point in time, I'm not seeing any real advantage to trading Darius Slay. Especially when it comes to cap space, trading Darius Slay right now would result in a cap savings of $4 million. It's not a lot of cap that would be saved if there was a trade. That would be quite a bit of a cap hit to take for something like that. Slay is in his 30s. He's in his younger 30s. So he's definitely not the youngest person in the books. But this is more, the way that I look at this move, this is more about, okay, let's see what Slay is going to command on the trade market here. And then from there, we can approach a contract. That's kind of how I'm looking at the move. Because there are a lot of variables there. Slay, I can definitely see commanding a little bit. He didn't earn Big Play Slay for his nickname, Big Play Slay, for a reason. But I'm not. This seems like it's more of a strategic move to identify how much Slay would actually command on the market. So that's kind of where that's coming from. Again, Slay has not made any indication that he wants to be traded. He has said numerous times over the course of the past week that he has told his agent to get a deal done. It doesn't matter how. He just said to get a deal done. This is just kind of one of those, I'm looking at this as a leverage conversation. And then we have a couple of reports that have been coming out there. So these are, again, at this point in time, these are not so much like anything has been made official or what have you. These are more along the lines of, okay, what's moving and shaking among players? What's the scuttlebutt here? The scuttlebutt surrounds 3 players. We've got C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who, again, starting safety for us starting safety for the Eagles. There are reports that he is being targeted for a new deal by the Eagles. We don't know what that deal is going to look like. There was speculation that the Eagles would apply the franchise tag to him. The franchise tag allows the team to be able to restrict, or to basically anybody who's going to be a free agent in the upcoming year. It allows the team that they played for to basically identify them as a key player that they don't want to get rid of. So that is a more strategic kind of a thing. Now, that having been said, when it comes to franchise players, when it comes to the franchise tag players they basically have certain rules surrounding guaranteed money. So there's a trade there, right? So it's a non-exclusive franchise tender is what it's officially called in the CBA. And basically what winds up happening is that if you apply the franchise tag, that extends a year that extends the contract by a year, and it also guarantees a certain amount of money to the player, which realistically we're not 100% sure if the Eagles would have had the cap space to be able to make that kind of a move. The Eagles did not exercise the franchise tag on Gardner-Johnson, even though there was some speculation that they might have. So that having been said, that doesn't mean that they're not interested in Gardner-Johnson. There are reports out that Gardner-Johnson is being targeted for a new deal. We don't know what that deal would look like. The Eagles, so unlike players outside of that, the Eagles could enter into a deal with Gardner-Johnson right now. They could enter into the deal with Gardner-Johnson right now. It would be effective for the new year. End of discussion. It's only for players outside of the Eagles. Like, for example, the Bears talking to TJ Edwards. Their deal will not go into effect until Wednesday. Same thing with Hargrave. Additional reports, James Bradbury, one of our starting corners, he also wants to remain in Philly. And Kaiser White is looking at testing his value in the market. Again, he sort of did suggest that he wanted to stay in Philly, but it's not, from his perspective, conducive to him sticking around there. He does want to test his value on the market, and we will see what happens on that front. There is quite a bit of speculation when it comes to Eagles players who are on the market. There is quite a bit of speculation surrounding all of that. We are here at Bird's Nest Media committed to staying on top of the we are committed here at Birds Nest Media to stay on top of the free agency news. So I would encourage you to just keep your eyes on our website, on our social media channels. We are at Birds Nest Media in all of the social media networks. Really strongly encourage you to do that. If given the choice between the two, Slay might be a better option than C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Looking at those two options there, but at the end of the day, it is interesting to look at. So we don't have a ton of news yet in terms of that. We've got those two departures. T.J. Edwards and Javon Hargrave are leaving. That is as good as official, and that will create some holes. That will create a hole at linebacker. That will create a hole at defensive tackle, which the Eagles will be able to look at to fill in for the draft. The Eagles have a handful of draft picks this year. They don't have a ton, unlike previous years. They have 2 in the first round. They've got 1 in the second and third. 1 in the second, third, and then we skip down to the 7th. So it's the Eagles don't have a ton of picks this year. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to watch. It's going to be interesting to see what's happening throughout the free agency period, which we are in the midst of. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. You can always check us out at birdsnestmedia.com. You can also check us out on the social media, Twitter or Facebook, Birds Nest Media. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Joe Donahue. Let's go Eagles.